So West Kennet Long Barrow. This has occupied many years of my life, and I've got an hour to squash into something I could talk about all day, really. So I developed in recent years not just an earth mysteries, but also a spiritual connection with West Kennet Long Barrow. And when I was told from wherever that my lot was to do the definitive guide about it, I wanted to do a really thorough guide. So originally we thought it would be a 50-page booklet, you know, and 233 pages later. Because I wanted to make it, because West Kennet Long Barrow has always been part of the community, so I sent out to the wider community via the internet and friends, and I had psychics along and dowsers along to give other people's input. So it's very much a community book, really, where, you know, a lot of the book isn't my own discoveries. But saying that, we spent a lot of time up at West Kennet, and especially the astronomy and the earth energies and dowsing, and this is just listing all the sections that we have, so hopefully there's something in it for everybody, because I'm of the belief that you can't just study any sacred site and just look at one aspect, because they are all multifaceted, multi-experiential, so you've got to look at it, I suppose, holistically, and any site, and West Kennet is a good example of that. So how many people have been to West Kennet? How many people haven't? Oh, shame on you. Go and stand at the back immediately, or you can get a ticket for the tour if they're still available. Okay. It's the, as Aubrey Burrell says, and he should know, the finest megalithic tomb in England and Wales. But very often it became evident that it was always more than a burial site. It was never just a burial site. To say West Kennet and other chambered tombs are just for burials is like saying that churches are just for weddings. So you look at all the other things that go on at churches and mosques and synagogues. They're a centre of the whole community. And I would suggest that West Kennet Long Barrow was a spiritual centre for some Neolithic clans right through the Neolithic thousands of years ago. West Kennet Long Barrow was certainly designed to impress. It's almost the longest long barrow in the whole of England, whole of Britain, just pipped by 4 metres by East Kennet Long Barrow, and this originally would have been pure white chalk. How it would have shined on the landscape, reflecting the sunlight, but reflecting the moonlight of a night. So West Kennet Long Barrow was no shrinking violet. It was designed to impress. So for people who haven't been there, or even if you have, this is West Kennet's Long Barrow, how it's sited in the greater landscape. Here's Avebury, which we're going to visit this week on the tour, the largest stone circle in the world. And we have Silbury Hill, of course, Britain's pyramid, the tallest prehistoric mound ever built, although, you know, we have the Bosnian ones in contention now for that. But, and there's lots of other sites around, because I soon found out that West Kennet is part of a greater landscape. And this is something at the fore of Earth Mysteries at the moment. So you've got East Kennet Long Barrow, the Sanctuary, Silbury, Silbaby, lots of other sites. So we looked at West Kennet Long Barrow in the context of the whole landscape, because it isn't actually sitting on the landscape, it's actually held within it, if you know what I mean. It's part of the landscape in a very intricate and precise way. So I also wanted to look at how prehistoric mounds had been looked at by our predecessors. And there's lots of folklore. These mounds have a lot of tales to do with dragons, giants, fairies. I love this one, the little fairies. There's the door into the mound, how cute. The obligatory magic mushroom there. And here's the hag, the crone in her barrow as well. So there's an awful lot of folklore associated with these mysterious mounds. I also wanted to look into great detail about who these people were. Who were the people who built Stonehenge, Avebury and West Kennet Long Barrow? And in a nutshell, there were people like you and I, people who had the same concerns about whether their newborn would survive, where the food was coming from, where our territory is being threatened, and they're not so dissimilar from today. And as you'll realise this weekend, our Neolithic ancestors were very, very well skilled, more than conventional archaeology has led us to believe. Any archaeologists in the room? Oh, good. Right, we can go to town then. Now, actually, my book contains more quotes from archaeologists than any of my previous books, because I'm actually finding that archaeologists are gradually backing up what we've been saying for years. So it's getting there gradually. So the Neolithic was revolutionary, farming replacing the hunter-gatherer lifestyle with widespread deforestation. And at the time, we were supposed to have had the perfect climate, what climatologists call. The summers were a few degrees warmer than today, and the winters were also milder. So it was perfect to coincide with the introduction of farming. And it also led to a new physical and spiritual relationship with the landscape that the clans increasingly depended on, because you're not wandering around the land now following the herds. You're in one place, and so therefore you're developing more, I think, of a spiritual relationship with that particular landscape rather than the landscape in general. Long barrows were clan icons. That's actually a quote from an archaeological book. How cool is that? And staking a claim on the land and its resources. So when people come along, interlopers or travellers to the area, the clans around West Kennet can look up at the ridge and say, those are our ancestors up there on the hill, not yours. So it gives the clan a sense of belonging, if you like, in the greater landscape. And I've gone a bit mad on Photoshop in this book. I had great fun, because I like to bring things to life, you know. I like to, you know, what was going on. And this is just a little family unit, perhaps celebrating some sort of anniversary, newborn baby there, the stars out, and the white mound there, and the deep black interior of West Kennet, which I think most people actually wouldn't have gone into. The interior of West Kennet was the realm of the ancestors, but also the realm of the shaman. So long barrows, there's just a few facts and figures there. Lord knows there's lots in the book, but I don't like putting big lists on slideshows. But sometimes pre-barrow activity was present. I think that's an important one, because several of these have been excavated, and even West Kennet Long Barrow, Piggott found evidence of Mesolithic activity underneath. So it could be that when they gave up their hunter-gatherer lifestyle, they were perhaps returning to sites they'd already visited and were held special to them when they were passing through areas in the Mesolithic, which I thought was interesting. And a higher than average percentage of chambered long barrows occur in Avebury than anywhere else. Usually elsewhere in the country, the majority of long barrows are earthen. So a lot of stones around the Avebury area, and they made use of them. So West Kennet Long Barrow belongs to a spectacular group called the Cotswold Seven Group, all characterised by chambers, Wayland Smithy, Bellasnap, West Kennet. And one of the key things is that they had continued access to the inside. So you weren't just putting Auntie Flo or whoever in there and then sealing her up, and that was it, like what happened in the later Bronze Age tumuli. There's continuous access, which is for two purposes, I think. One is to put more people in there, of course, later on, more internments, more cremations, but it's also to allow continuous access to the shaman. Before we go on as well, I don't want to upset any ladies present. When I talk about shaman, it could be male or female. Okay, let's get that straight. So I certainly did a lot of time walking around the landscape, inspired by William Stukeley and later on by Paul Devereux, who went around the landscape looking at the sites from different directions, looking for sight lines, getting a feel to how the different sites fit within the greater landscape. This is a view from East Kennet Long Barrow. There's West Kennet up on the ridge there, and there's Silbury Hill coinciding with the distant skyline. And it was the intricate intervisibility of monuments that really struck me. And also, most of the hands went up. You know, when you walk up the big hill to West Kennet, I also noticed very soon in our perambulation around the landscape that this ridge, although we think it's quite a big ridge when you go up to it, actually lies below the distant skyline in every direction. In other words, all around West Kennet, you've got a ring of higher hills. And I'm not aware anybody had noticed that before. So actually West Kennet, although it's on a ridge, is actually sitting in a bowl. It's actually, I think, surrounded by the goddess landscape. So these are some of the sight lines we found. A couple of these have been noted by Devereux. Some of them are new to my study. And again, these aren't map lines, they are sight lines. Some of them are 3 miles long, this one here. Intricate positioning of sites of different ages. Some of these involve early Neolithic, late Neolithic, and even Bronze Age sites. But I have no problem with that, because people are using this area in a sacred context for many, many centuries. William Stukeley, of course, we've probably all seen his drawings. And he went there in the 18th century, and I've used to great effect, I think, some of his drawings. So they often show views we can't see now, and often show sites such as this one, which I go into, which aren't there at all now. So I went very thoroughly into all the antiquarian stuff that had ever been written about West Kennet, because some of it was very, very instructive. So just show you a few sites of all these, just to show how the intervisibility of West Kennet and how it's precise. This is a newly discovered mound called Silbaby, the Wadden Mound, down in the valley next to the River Kennet. And notice from there how West Kennet straddles the skyline, almost like a dragon or a serpent, isn't it, straddling the skyline there. Astronomically aligned as well. Here's another one. This is one that Paul Devereux spotted a few years ago from the Horslip Long Barrow. Which is a early Neolithic site. There's West Kennet Long Barrow, again early Neolithic site. And this Silbury Hill was built about 1,000 years later. And look how this slope exactly touches the stones of West Kennet. This is intricate positioning from something that's made of 11 million cubic tons. So they were clearly taking account of the alignment from the two lower Neolithic sites when they built that. Look at that. And if you go round to Windmill Hill, which we did, look, this is the view of Silbury again, only from Windmill Hill. Look at this, how the other end of West Kennet Long Barrow now coincides with the top ledge of Silbury. This is amazing engineering and intricacy. This is my favourite one. We went up to a place called the Hairstone Downstones, rediscovered recently by Terence Mearden, and we stood up there. This is a Bronze Age circle, we think, although it could be possibly sooner. And look at the alignment. We're standing in the circle on this beautiful June evening, and look how the axis of Silbury Hill coincides exactly with the chambers of West Kennet Long Barrow. And these are separated by, probably a mile altogether. But that looks as if it's touching that, but it's a further half a mile further on. This is really intricacy, isn't it? So you have a lower Neolithic site, an upper Neolithic site, and a Bronze Age circle, all in perfect harmony. How else can you put it? So one of the chapters in West Kennet deals with, in the book, gives a little guided tour, because I often sit on top of the mound, chilling out, and I see people come up very often. They might spend 5 minutes up there, click a few pictures, and then they go down. So we've literally done a stone-by-stone guide to the whole monument. So that's the view you normally get when you come up the path. And this is the view taken on the Equinoxes Sunrise. So you have these facade of stones. The middle three, we think, we put up in the later Neolithic. So originally you'd have been able to wall straight in, a bit like at Newgrange, Stony Littleton, and some of the other sites. And this is the plan looking down, and this huge mound, originally of white chalk, 100 metres long. But look how the chambers only occupy 8% of that. So what's all this for? So I'll come to that later when I come to the earth energies. But even the symbolism, we have the womb of the goddess. Is this the phallus? It's been suggested. So clearly all of this, perhaps it's even just making an impression. We have many, many thousands of tons of chalk here, visible from miles away. And of course the mound material is gathered from the ditches, which John North says are also of astronomical relevance. So when Stuart Piggott did the excavations in 55, 56, he very conveniently numbered all the stones, which was fantastic. So I'm able to refer to stones in my studies and my field trips and say, if you go on stone 5 and stone 12, look at this. The whole axis is just off east-west. It's not bad design. It enables more stellar observations, as I'll deal with very shortly. So this stone wouldn't have been here originally, these 3 stones, so you'd have been able to walk straight in. There'd have been 2 horns either side, which occurs elsewhere in European sites, and this limits and defines the light coming into West Kennet. So these 2 we think were original as well. So there's 2 side chambers and a much larger western chamber. All slightly off east-west, but there's astronomically and to align it with a distant hill, which I'll go into very shortly. So you stand at West Kennet and you look inside, and even on a bright sunny day, it can appear really dark in there. And of course, it's more illuminated now by a couple of skylights. Don't get me started on that one. Restoration. Yes, so we've got a couple of skylights in there, which are easy to obscure, but I do most of my meditation and drumming groups we take up there overnight and for the full moon. magical. But it's a liminal experience, this. The passage creates this liminality. You're going from the light to the dark, from the known to the unknown. You're going into the other realms, through a portal to other realms. And you're going into the womb, literally. And of course, at the end of your ritual or your night there, if you actually come out sane and you actually are reborn, rebirthing out of the womb. Rebirthing isn't a New Age thing, you know. It was going on in here 5,000 years ago, I would suggest. And then at the end of in the Upper Neolithic, after about 1,000 years of use, they put this huge, big, fat goddess stone there with a left-facing head, a couple of eyes there and a nose, and it's actually facing just off north-south, and it's actually facing Stonehenge, which is about 16 miles to the south. So it must have good eyesight. That's why it's got 2 eyes, yeah. And a 1 metre long vulva hole there, which Terence Meaden first described. So they didn't just fill the mound or the entrance with any old lots of rubble and chalk. They put this massive, big goddess stone there, I think to show that it is a goddess site. But again, I went to play in Photoshop again. And I thought, what would happen? What would be the view if that wasn't there anymore? And that's what West Kennet would have looked like in the early Neolithic. The blocking stones have gone, the lovely white mound, and look at the inky blackness of that. To go into there must have been quite an amazing experience, even an experience of much trepidation. Then we look out from the landscape. So I've done a complete 360-degree view of all the things you can see from West Kennet, which is very instructive. Most people go up there, and of course everybody recognises Silbury, but Avebury is just obscured. Moving round to the northeast is Wadden Hill, which of course is Woden's Hill, very sacred phallic-shaped hill, pointing straight into Avebury Henge, the womb of the goddess. So there was also male symbolism on the land, that you have to have as much yang as you do yin, I think, in these ancient sites. Coming round to the northeast, sorry this one's in black and white, this is standing at the entrance to West Kennet, and these big beech trees here mark Bronze Age tumuli. And notice astronomically how they are perfectly positioned for the summer solstice sunrise and the northernmost moonrise. Of course, they would have occurred originally slightly to the left, coming right out of the Barrows in Bronze Age times. And of course, for those alignments to be realised and for you to observe that astronomy in the Bronze Age, you need to be standing on West Kennet. So even long after the site was sealed, around 2000 BC, people were still going up there. It was still a sacred site. Moving round to the east, here's exactly east there. These are 2 very conveniently farm buildings, positioned farm buildings to show us which way is east. They're not Neolithic, these, but it explains Spain's east, because there's the blocking stone, so the axis is slightly off. The busy A4 rumbles across there. There's the sanctuary. East Kennet village is just obscured there. So we carry further around. I've missed a few scenes out, but eventually you come to this lovely view, which is East Kennet Long Barrow. People often come up to West Kennet and will ask me, where's East Kennet Long Barrow? And there it is, and it's angling away from us, which is really important, as I'll show you later on, perfectly framed by these 2 stones. So that's the longest long barrow in Britain. Moving round, we then look in the opposite direction, due west. In other words, we're looking down the tail. And this is the view you get. I've done a virtual reconstruction. There's a few trees here now, but we went round the other side, took some shots, and this would have been the view you got in the early to late Neolithic. And look, we have the classic breasts of the goddess, I think. There's lots of sites. Devereux found a few. I found some in Dorset, where sites are lined up with twinned hills, the breasts of the goddess. And I think this is one of the reasons the axis is pointing towards the hills, not due east. These aren't Neolithic masts, of course, these. So east is west. West is over here, but they're not. I think they're pointing to the breasts of the Earth Mother. And coming back round to the north, I've done a reconstruction of what Silbury Hill may have looked like thousands of years ago. Wonderful in the Upper Neolithic. Gleaming white on the landscape, reflecting the sunlight, reflecting the moonlight. What a sight that must have been. So I went through all the old antiquarian results for West Kennet Long Barrow, and it was really only John Aubrey and William Stukeley who'd done the early work on it. I actually had the pleasure of holding one of Stukeley's original manuscripts. I had to put these little white gloves on, and to hold it. But they actually let me photograph directly out of the book, not using a flash. He said, you can't use a flash. Actually, I photographed illustrations out of his book to use in mine. And there were a few there that I hadn't seen. Everybody's seen this one, but I found a few others. And these are very instructive, because this is how the site looked on the 17th of July, 1723, and then 12 months later. And it shows the ditch, which isn't there now. It shows some stones that were later taken away. It shows some capstones that aren't there now. So by looking at the old antiquarian drawings, we can piece things back together. This is another one. This is probably the Stukely drawing that you've seen. This is reproduced in lots of books. Stukely was a brilliant artist, I think, but he often had the notion of making stones appear much larger than they are. He exaggerated the dimensions. Perhaps it's a man thing, I don't know. So he tended to show things bigger than they really are. Right. So the first excavations were by John Thurman, who excavated the West Chamber in 1859. He actually went a little bit down into down the passageway, but fortunately for archaeologists, he missed the other 4 chambers, and I'll come back to this later. And here's his drawing of it, and he found 6 primary skeletons, but he also found a lot of rubble and other deposits right to the ceiling, and he thought these were later sediment, like washed in, but as I'll show you very shortly, he certainly wasn't. John Thurman actually used he was the superintendent of the Devizes Asylum, and he actually brought some of the patients along to help with the digging. He said it would be good occupational therapy. Free labour, more like, you know. Okay, so here's the gent. I've done a reconstruction. Here's the gent making his notes. Here's the poor old work. It's always the worker, the working class man who does all the work, and nothing's changed. So, and this is one of the actual skulls he found. Thousands of intricate pots, some of them I've managed to reproduce, and here's one of his rather romantic drawings. So, and that was all that was done in West Kennet for 100 years, until Piggott came along, Stuart Piggott, who did some work at Avebury and with Alexandra Keeler, and he also excavated Wayland Smithy, and also Richard Atkinson, who went on to great things. And this is the condition they found West Kennet in before they put a single shovel in the ground. It was in a right mess. And this is the big blocking stone, stone 45. It's lying flat on the ground. Some of the stones had been taken away. Some were lying, you know, half buried. So it really was in a right state. But Piggott expresses his great joy that 4 of the chambers were unexcavated, hadn't been broken into. And at the time, it was a bit like finding Tutankhamun's tomb all again, you know, because this is as late as the 1950s, and most of the other chambered tombs had been, I want to use the word pillaged, but no, had been excavated by Victorian archaeologists. And so this was a great find, because they were able to go up all the 4 unaltered chambers, inch by inch they were able to go down, and what they found was incredible. So here's the blocking stone, which Piggott proved was put up right at the end of the site, because he found a beaker sherd pot underneath it, so which dated it to Upper Neolithic. So as I say, it was in a right state of collapse and degradation when he arrived, because lots of people had a bit of West Kennet over the years. Farmers had been taking bits away. Very sad. So I reproduced some drawings from his excavation. Again, there were 35, we think, primary skeletons, complete skeletons. I haven't got the details for this, because this is the one that Thurman excavated. But what I did note is that look at the other 4 chambers. This is the primary skeletons. And notice how they're all piled up against the back wall. And it's not to allow more to be put on the inside, because they never used all this space up in the primary burials. I think this space isn't for the dead. It's for the living. It's where the shamans can go in and sit with the bones of the ancestors. We're better to converse with the spirit of the ancestors than amongst their bones. So again, they are all piled up. And right down the centre of the whole length of the 100-metre mound is a spine of sarsens, and also some ribs. These were never meant to be seen. And we have organic and inorganic layering. You know, Wilhelm Relk's work on organ generator. You know, you take a mobile phone or anything else inside West Kennet and it goes dead. You know, so all of this you're like cut off from the outside world. But the earth energies, I think, use this core, use this spine, a bit like the kundalini of the human body, to channel the energies into the chamber, I suspect. So this is one diagram of one of the chambers, and you can see all this refill, all this filling in There's the primary burials, and then all of this was filled in over a period of 1,000 years. And it's not just stuff thrown in willy-nilly or filled in at the end. This is very careful layering and things thrown in. It seems to be like after the primary burials, from there on, in the middle and later Neolithic, just token bones of somebody dying were put in. Like you'd have one lung bone or one skull put in there, like a token burial bone. So it could be that the bones were being excarnated at that time, or even cremation, and you just kept a little bit to put in as a token, perhaps in case you wanted to contact the ancestors again. And also several skulls were missing. They were taking the skulls out of West Kennet to be used elsewhere. Some of the skulls that are missing from West Kennet, they think that they've identified in the ditches at Windmill Hill, 3 miles away. So these are portable objects, and of course in a lot of cultures today, people believe that the soul resides in the skull. So these are portable divination objects, and this is one of them. And the pottery at West Kennet is famous. This is the famous beaker pot. Only one other pot in England, I think, has these such complex pottery. Over 250 pots, we think, are represented at West Kennet. All of them except 2 were smashed. So again, they weren't meant to be used again. Perhaps they were the pots of the shaman or the people who were being interred there. But they were being broken. Sometimes the pots were scattered in different chambers. So there's a lot of ritual intent going on here. And we have ox bones that were used as flutes. We have pendants. All this is on display in Devises Museum. I can really recommend it. Beautiful, intricate artwork. We go in the book, we go into the symbolism of all this, the vulva of the Earth Mother and lightning and wheat. It's a magnificent object. And that little pot is about that big. It's so cute. It is, but the work in it is amazing. It's almost unique in this country, something that complete and that intricate in the carving. It never was something that you boiled your cabbage up in. It was a ritual object. So by far the biggest chapter in the book is something that is very dear to my heart, and that's the shamanic beliefs of our prehistoric ancestors. So the shamanism and the meaning of West Kennet Longbow, as I said before, is the story of real people. And just like today, we have priests and rabbis and all that sort of thing to kind of be the spiritual, I was going to say interloper then, I was going to say intermediary. So we have the shamans in tribal cultures. And I've got several quotes from archaeologists which are they're actually using the word shaman now. So things are getting there. They're saying that the shamans were active in Wiltshire 5,000 years ago. So the object of a shaman really is to pass over to the other world with the use of sleep deprivation, food deprivation, trance drumming, and the use of hallucinogens, which we certainly know were in use in the Neolithic. I contacted a fungi expert, and he said at least 10 psychoactive plants were growing in Wiltshire in the Upper Neolithic. And of course, psychoactive plants are the basis of shamanism, have been for centuries. And they found some of these pots across Britain with these little legs, and a guy called Sharratt has suggested that these were for the burning of incense and hallucinogens. So these ones with the little feet. So, and even when there's incense going around, like on one of our shamanic gatherings, even some of the stones suddenly take on a mystical appearance. So can you imagine seeing some of these stones? This is just the edge of a stone. Can you imagine seeing that thousands of years ago when you've had a couple of these inside you? But no, you might laugh, but this is part of the experience. This is the experience. It's getting your mind out the way. So, as well as large gatherings in there, it was also a place of rite of passage and initiation. I've done a little drawing here of a girl going in for her rites of passage. And can you imagine spending all night in West Kennet, perhaps just lit by a few burning herbs on some scallop shells. So perhaps you have to spend all night in there on your own. And I've been in West Kennet when the last candle has gone out, and I tell you, your imagination goes berserk. And that's what it's meant to do. Yeah, and don't forget, thousands of years ago, either the experienced shaman or the young girl going in there wouldn't have been sitting in an empty chamber. Flickering in the light would have been the skulls of your ancestors staring back at you. You know, could you do that? Oh, I could, but I'm just a right weirdo. So. So this is a lovely drawing by Judith Doby, who does a lot of work for English Heritage. I got permission to use this one. And it shows, I think, the last burial in the whole of West Kennet. They're getting ready to put the 3 blocking stones on. We know it's Upper Neolithic because there's Silbury Hill. And it just captures the atmosphere. The whole tribe is there to see this person off. Because with an extended family, an extended clan, they probably all related to the person that's going in there. So it really captures the atmosphere, I think. The next section we call spirit stones, and Terence Meaden found that a lot of the stones in Avebury and elsewhere often have faces on them, which weren't necessarily carved, but the stones were being selected because of the images on them. And I'll go into this into quite some depth, but I'll just show you a few. You can probably see this almost human head with this ram's horn around. And do you like this one? Anybody's into aliens? Look at that one. Hey. This is Glastonbury, of course you're into aliens. So really freaky, hey, that one. And don't forget, in ancient times, these faces would have been seen in the light of flickering torches, flickering lamps, and also when you perhaps got a couple of mushrooms inside you. So these would have become animated, and in tribal culture today, they often speak of stones being the houses of spirits. They are spirit stones. So you might, if you've been into West Kennet, you might notice that just before you come into the west chamber, this stone sticks out and makes the passage more or less half as wide. And I think it's to give this the appearance of a phallus. Because I've been all over Ireland and Europe, and I nearly always find in these so-called womb sites one phallic stone, tall and erect in the centre, because you have to have the yang element in the goddess. And this one at the end here, hope you can see it, there's a bit of light interference, but can you see the left-facing head there? Beautiful, with the eye and the nose and the chin. If you was to draw that profile in your art class, your teacher would be very pleased. So, but this is in hard sarsenstone, and we call this the living head, because over the other side of the west chamber, there's the living head. We have what can only be described as a skull. When the weather's damp, because it's iron-rich, all of this water, this moisture condensates on the stone, giving it the appearance of a skull. And I'm going to come back to these very, very shortly, because they are integral to the astronomy of West Kennet. I've done a lot of work on the acoustics, of course. Paul Devereux and others have stood on this stage saying how Devereux and Keating and some of the others have gone round with instruments, and they prove now that a lot of these chambered tombs are designed with the acoustics in mind. And of course, you know, why make a chamber resonant acoustically for the dead? You wouldn't, would you? It's for the living to go in there. And we've identified some standing wave spots in West Kennet where you stand there and the sound goes deeper and it goes louder. And this is one of the best spots of all, in front of the skull stone. What a coincidence. So you drum there and you just literally feel the sound just vibrating around you. We take Reiki groups and Shaman groups in there, and I always say take time in drumming in front of the skull stone. Evidence of flutes in the Avebury area, definitely. We know that music was involved, and this is the famous chalk drum from Fulkton. So, of course, most drums, of course, because they're wood and animal skin, they don't get preserved in our climate. But we're pretty sure that the things that are in shamanism today, drums and flutes, were around here in the Upper Neolithic. So the sound inside West Kennet is truly magical. Are you going to move on for me? Yes. So I've had professional musicians, flutes, didge players come in and sample the music in different chambers, and they all seem to have different resonances. Paul Devereux and other archaeologists working on the acoustics of sacred sites haven't been into West Kennet yet, and they probably won't, because of the night lights have been put in, the skylights rather, and because of the, you know, there's a lot of concrete in there, and one of the capstones has gone. It's very difficult, of course, to tell what the acoustics were like thousands of years ago due to the so-called improving restoration. So, but I can certainly, I'll give lots of evidence in the book that there are some very good acoustic hotspots in West Kennet. There's a whole series of experiences by psychics. I invited various shamans, psychics, channelers to come into West Kennet, and it's amazing what they found. They all agree that it's a portal today. It's not just a lump of rocks that used to be used at one time. It's a portal today. And I didn't tell anybody, any channelers, any guests, what the other people had found, and very often they find the same thing. They felt one chamber was actually used for childbirth. I like the idea of that. You come into the world actually out of the womb of the mother, and then at the end of your life you go back in. I actually like, and they all found the same, they all felt this one chamber. And they all picked up one of the chambers of West Kennet when they did the excavations they found was full of primarily child skeletons. And most of the channelers picked that up. They said, I can feel children in this chamber. So isn't that amazing? So it's very much alive today, West Kennet. On one of the afternoons where I had various shamanic drummers and channelers along, somebody took this video sequence, which I think is quite amazing. I've just got 4 or 5 shots here. I could have bought the whole sequence, but it's very heavy on memory. But if you look at, this is a friend called ours called Chrissy with a shamanic drum, and her drumstick is actually off the drum, and by the end of the sequence, it's actually on the drum. So we reckon the whole sequence here is about 1.5 seconds. So you see something's coming in here. And I play devil's advocate, you know. I thought, what is it? Is it a moth just flying by and that sort of thing? Nobody saw it at the time. But then have a look what happens here. It almost looks like the Enterprise, doesn't it? And then this is the one that blew my mind. Because can you see the ripples? There's ripples here coming down. Can you see that trail on both sides? A moth wouldn't do that. And look how it's morphing. It almost looks like a bone. And then the next sequence, it turns into a spiral, and there's a flash of light down here. So if I just run that back, so there's an awful lot going on in West Kennet. And we've been drumming, you know, for quite a while. So on my drumming nights, we often attract all sorts of things to us, and especially orbs. Got loads of pictures of orbs. Again, especially after meditation and our drumming evenings, we're attracting the attention of something to what we're doing. Section on earth energies, very powerful site earth energy-wise. I'm dowsing here. These 2 bits of string mark where the Mary current comes out of West Kennet Long Barrow. You're all aware of The Sun and the Serpent by Paul Michel and the late, great Hamish Miller, and describing the St. Michael line going across the country. And this is what the energies do around Avebury. I'm sure you've all seen this many times. But it's the female current that goes through Silbury Hill, the pregnant tummy of the Earth Mother. It's the female flow that goes to the spring, and it's the female flow, the Mary current, that goes through West Kennet Long Barrow. And Miller and Broadhurst found all those years ago that the majority of chambered tombs and fogus and underground sites, it's the Mary flow that goes through it. You're going down into the body of Mother Earth. So we had a lot of dowsers along. This is the Wyvern dowsers who came along at my invitation, and all these little flags. We haven't just been to the seaside, and these are the little flags that the dowsers give you, and this is marking the flow of the Mary current when it comes out of the site. So the place is still alive today. And again, I gave all the dowsers a little map of the site, and I said, please tell me what you find independently, no talking, no conferring. And I got all the results back at the end of the day, and they found very, very, very similar things, which is unusual for dowsers. And this is just a few. This is, thank Maria Wheatley for this diagram. This just shows how an underground water course comes up and forms branch spirals. You stand in the middle of these chambers and you can feel it, like even before you've been in the pub, you know, you're going like this, and you can feel you have a job keeping your balance. And I've just got time briefly to mention the sacred geometry. There's the golden section, the golden triangle, which completely encloses West Kennet Long Barrow, and you can put a hexagram inside that. The middle of the hexagram line, as you see, goes through the centre of each chamber, and then the points are at the entrance and in the centre. I've got a bit of distortion on here. I can assure you both of those are perfect circles, but we seem to have had a little bit of squashiness on this. So sacred geometry, 5,500 years ago in Wiltshire. Of course, I couldn't deal with the mysterious and earth energies without the good old crop circles. So this is two that particularly caught my eye, which I've detailed. I love this one. There's West Kennet Long Barrow. This is the moon and the sun. Perfect balance it represents. And this is one I particularly like. There's the Barrow. And if you see this bottom one here, see how 3D it is. It's almost like looking down the chambers, isn't it? It's almost like looking down. And there's the light at the end of the tunnel, you know. Quite amazing. Ollie, can you all see? Yeah. Okay. So a lot of crop circles occur around West Kennet every year, and it's hardly surprising, really. So one of the most exciting aspects I dealt with at West Kennet was the astronomy. The sun, the moon, and the stars. This is a big section in the book. And I'd done astronomy before. My book, Ancient Stones of Dorset, mapped out the orientations of all the long barrows in Dorset. And you can see there's a big bias here towards the winter solstice sunrise and the equinox. And based on Aubrey Burl's directions in his book about Abra, you see there's an equal bias. So the southeast and the east, two favoured directions. So, as I said before, it more or less coincides with the sunrise of the equinox twice a year. And here's the living head on this side, and there's the skull stone on that side. And of course, when the sun is coming along the skyline, when it's going north along the horizon in the spring, the first stone it shines on is the skull stone. And at the end of 10 days, the last stone it shines on is the living head. It's going from the dead time of the year to the living time of the year. And then 6 months later, when the sun is coming back south along the horizon, the first thing it shines on is the living head, and the last thing it shines on is the skull head, because it's going from the living part of the year to the dead part of the year. How funky is that? They're even the right way round. That wouldn't work if those were the other way round. Quite amazing. And all that is possible because that blocking stone isn't there for most of West Kennet's history. You'd think with that big blocking stone there that no light would get in there now. I'm sure you've all sat at the end of the west chamber and you turn around and there's a whopping big stone. You cannot see the skyline at all when you're standing up. But this was at the equinox. And because of the sun has to clear the blocking stone now, 20 minutes after sunrise, the sun does enter the chamber. You've just got to stick around. So, and there it is, lighting up the skull stone, just like it did 5,500 years ago. That is an amazing sight to see that. Only at the equinox, twice a year. And I've been into Photoshop again, sorry, I've done a reconstruction of what it would have appeared like standing in the west chamber, looking out at the equinox sunrise in the Neolithic. What a sight that must have been. Can you imagine you've been in the dark confines of West Kennet all night doing your ritual, your initiation, and then the sun comes up and streams down the chamber. Much better effect actually than Newgrange. This is much higher and wider than the passage at Newgrange. The effect must have been uplifting. And do you remember I mentioned those barrows earlier on that mark the summer solstice sunrise? Well, if I've got a theory, I go and check it out. So I dragged poor Sue. Where are you, Sue? Yeah, I dragged her up at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning for all these sunrises. The winter solstice was good, wasn't it? Oh no, the Imbolc sunrise was good. We got out the car and it was -8.5. So wonderful. I love her. So if you know, this is the view from the north, the first chamber on the left as you go in, the southeast chamber. So we went along for the solstice, and there it is, rising out of the barrows. Originally, see, the top of it comes out there now. In Bronze Age times, it would have risen there, in Neolithic about there. So these Bronze Age barrows, you know, are aligned with, and you have to be at West Kennet to get that. If you go into the field either side, you lose this alignment. And just to prove it works, this is from the same chamber, look, and it lights the chamber up, only for about a week every year. And I call it my Doctor Who moments, right? And it's like going back in time, because as you stand there in this chamber being lit up by the sun, you know that thousands of years ago, somebody was standing in the same place. And it's like going back in time. Please try it. And the opposite end of the year, this is the winter solstice sunrise. It was cloudy that morning, unfortunately, but you can see it's just risen out of East Kennet Long Barrow. So West Kennet Long Barrow and East Kennet are solstice aligned, because at the other end of the year, we've got some pictures in the book standing at East Kennet Long Barrow, and the sun sets into West Kennet. They are solstice aligned. And there's the winter solstice sunset. I've just put that in because it's a pretty picture, actually, no other excuse. But to me, this is what it's all about, going out there, not just reading about it. If people read any of my books and don't take them out into the field, then I have failed utterly. The idea is to go out there and experience it yourself, folks. And even the moon can enter 4 of the chambers at different times of the year. Again, can you imagine sitting here? It's only the flash that's made these stones bright, but this chamber was pitch black, and then the full moon rises and streams into it. Wonderful. And I've done another virtual reconstruction of the equinox moonrise, because no matter when the lunar cycle is in the 18.5-year cycle, at equinox the moon has to rise a little bit either side of east-west. So what a sight that must have been, sitting in the pitch black chamber of West Kennet, and then suddenly the moon rises. Inspirational. So John North was the first person in 1996, the academic who did some preliminary work at West Kennet Longbarrow, and it inspired me to look at the stellar alignments. So I got a computer program which enabled me, which you can get generally, which enables you to go back and look at the stars for any minute going back to like 6000 BC from anywhere on the planet, because of course the stars have radically changed their position since ancient times. And this is just a few of the alignments of the stars that can be visible from the chambers of West Kennet once they're high enough to pass their extinction angle, you know, because you can't see stars when they initially rise because of the atmosphere. So John North did a few of these, and I have added a few very important stars. Anybody who's into the Pleiades, and you'd have to stand into this chamber or sit in this chamber, and you would get that view in the early Neolithic, the Pleiades framed perfectly from the one chamber. And here's just a few astronomical events I've got in the Upper Neolithic, visible from the Palisades down in the valley. And as you see, throughout the Upper Neolithic, the Jupiter, for about 30 years, set into West Kennet Longbarrow. And look at that white chamber straddling the skyline, reflecting the moonlight. And every now and again, in fact, I reckon twice a year, the moon rather, would set straight into the chambers, only from the Palisades. Now, of course, we all know about the alignments of Orion and Sirius with Egypt and elsewhere, and the great spiritual relevance that Sirius has, the brightest star in the sky, to so many ancient cultures. And this was major stuff, finding this at West Kennet. Here's looking across southeast to East Kennet Longbarrow, and Orion's belt actually has just become visible above East Kennet Longbarrow, which actually angles just like East Kennet Longbarrow, which I thought was interesting. And Rigel first becomes visible above the Hairstone Circle. Sirius hasn't risen yet. But again, 50 minutes later, Sirius rises, and because it's so bright, you can more or less see it instantly, right above the entrance to East Kennet Longbarrow, and then Orion has then cleared the horizon. So we've got sites which are lining up. Only from West Kennet, again, if you just move into the field, you lose the alignments. This is one that really floated my boat. Okay, this is the view looking in any time in the early Neolithic, and right up to the late Neolithic actually, you'd have got this view. Just before Gemini sets, it actually, the only time it stands vertical in the sky, there's the two twins, Pollux and Castor, is when it's exactly in line with West Kennet. Because you normally, when you look at Gemini in the sky, they are horizontal. But look at this one. This is Orion, who's been associated with Herne the Hunter, Odin, Gwyn ap Nudd at Glastonbury. He's the hunter. He goes into the underworld. In one myth, Orion goes into the underworld to regain his sight. His sight, whatever that is. Is it physical sight? Or so I'm wondering, you see, look what happens. Orion sets into the chamber and then goes down into the underworld. And I'm just wondering at that point whether the shamans then go into West Kennet Longbarrow for their sight, perhaps. So that could have set anywhere. It sets into West Kennet, right in line with the entrance in the early Neolithic. Just a few more examples. I haven't got time to show you many more, but this is in the early Neolithic. This is the view from West Kennet Longbarrow, looking at Windmill Hill, which is an early occupation, semi-nomadic site in the Aby area, major ritual and occupation site. There it is, Windmill Hill. And look what happens, only visible from West Kennet in the early Neolithic, the galactic equator goes right through it. And also Cygnus, which Andrew Collins and very shortly Nick Mann is showing has a close association with Avery, ceases to be visible right above Windmill Hill. So coming forward 1,000 years, this is the view now. This is the same view. There's Windmill Hill, but now Silbury has been built. And look what happens. The galactic equator, visible from West Kennet Longbarrow, has moved along a couple of degrees and passes right through Silbury Hill. Is that a coincidence? Because this is only from West Kennet Longbarrow. Of course, if you go just a few hundred yards, to the west, the galactic equator will appear to missed there. And again, Deneb set soon afterwards. Deneb is circumpolar now, but at one time it didn't. It used to set for a while in the early Neolithic. So this is visible from West Kennet Long Barrow, a so-called burial site, you know. It's much more than that. Lots of alignments at Avebury, evolved with West Kennet. Some of these are John North, some are my own. Again, you're welcome to look at the diagrams we've got. John North found years ago, long barrows are always arranged in lines of 3 or 4. You see, and archaeologists are okay if you use the word alignment. Ley line, they'll march you out the building, you know, but if you use the word alignment, they're happy with that. How weird is that, hey? So I only use the word, I've sold out a bit, I only use the word ley line when I'm referring to other people's work in my book. So shame on me. But I get asked to archaeological groups, and let's face it, those are the people we've got to convert, isn't it? So I hold my hands up to that one. So in the aspect of landscape alignments, Hugh mentioned the Wessex Astrum, which was revealed to me a few years ago. There's Glastonbury, bless it, and there's Avebury, and there's Stonehenge, a perfect right-angled triangle. This line coincides with the axis of Glastonbury Abbey. John Michel spotted this one, and of course Robin Heath has recently described this one, the Stonehenge to Avebury line. And the reason I'm showing this is because West Kennet Long Barrow is situated on this line here. And as all these lines come into Avebury and Stonehenge and Glastonbury, they take in all the major sites. The 5 lines of the Astrum as they come into Glastonbury take virtually all the major sites in of Glastonbury Abbey. But there's a big map downstairs by my stand if you want to explore this any further. The Flower of Life, of course, well known, very, very mystical, again, almost universal figure. And a guy called Graham Tucker recently put the Flower of Life over the Avebury landscape, and I've added a few more sites that he wasn't aware of, and as you can see, they're on the lines, they're on the curves. So that's quite interesting work, which I think is going to be ongoing. Everything's connected. I think that's the main point. In the landscape, everything is connected. Nothing's in isolation. So just a pretty shot here, just to encourage you to go out at different times of the year. The landscape changes. You know, this is how I know the Earth is mother, you know, because she has so many moods. And I mean that in a nice way, right? She's feminine. She's feminine. God, how am I going to dig myself out of this one? Right, let's move on to the next slide. So a nice, again, please go up during the winter because everybody's going to have a West Kennet Christmas card off us this year. So again, this was another freezing cold morning when I dragged Sue up in the middle of nowhere to West Kennet, but it was worth it. It was worth it. And you know you're going to get the place to yourself because no other idiot's going to go up there on a freezing cold morning. So isn't it beautiful? So please try and visit West Kennet in lots of different areas. The penultimate chapter in the book is about something I feel very strongly about, and it's about the use of the site today. Because I'm a pagan, although I take my wisdom from wherever it comes, and but I go up to West Kennet almost on a regular basis, and we peel off wax from the stones, night lights that have been left behind, all sorts of what's called ritual litter. And it's quite ironic that that most of the damage at West Kennet is done by people who come to honour it. Isn't that an irony? And it's just out of ignorance, you know. So I've got a list of do's and don'ts in the book, suggestions, and it's going around the net now, and it seems to be getting there. You know, we have our drumming nights. You know, we can go up there and do a ritual, and we did this on Samhain. A little orb turned up. Can you see there? While we're doing our, you know, and we have whole drumming nights up there. You know, sunrise, you know, we have a real funky party in there as well as some deeper work. But at the end of the night, anybody walking in after us would not know a single person had been in there. And I feel really strongly about this. Because, you know, English Heritage have already closed down some sites. So let's not give them an excuse to close down other sites. You know, if I thought the archaeology was being damaged and they had to close the site down, I would be the first one with a shovel in my hand. Because the site is more important than us, you know, it's eternal. So that's something I feel very strongly about, and word seems to be getting round. I think our ancestors want, the only thing they want left in there, I think, is our love. So the reason West Kennet Long Barrow I feel very closely connected to is that my father's ashes were scattered around the site. And he has actually communicated with me several times, and my novel West Kennet Long Barrow has some semi-autobiographical bits which tells the story how I interred my dad's ancestors. And with the help of my shaman teacher Heather, he has come through to me a few times. So we've all lost relatives, haven't we? We've all lost people dear to us, our ancestors, our relatives, and this is, and why not, if you want to contact them, why not do it where people were doing it 5,500 years ago? 2012, da-da, groan. That was a groan then, wasn't it? A lot of stuff had been written about 2012, some good and some, you know, and yeah. But most of it good, I'm glad to say. So, of course, I had to do a little section on 2012. I don't see tidal waves and Book of Revelation stuff happening. I see 2012 as an opportunity to change the world, and I'm sure some of the other speakers this weekend are going to reflect that. But this is the view from West Kennet Long Barrow, which is where I'll be standing at the great alignment at the midwinter next year. And I love this because Venus is leading the way. The goddess's love rises before sunrise, and then Mercury, of course, the messenger, is closely behind. And straggling way behind there is Mars, which, although it has some positive qualities, is traditionally associated with the god of war. So it's almost as if we're leaving that behind and we're being embraced, the new message and Venus. So interesting times coming up, eh? So I stood on this stage in 2007, and in my nervousness, I finished a bit early. I'm not going to do that today. And I'm dying to get off the stage, actually, and then Hugh gets on the stage and says, right, you finished a bit early, any questions? Thanks, you. And the last question came from the back, right from the back. So, Pete, what's your favourite or most loved sacred site you've ever been to? And I'm standing up here, knowing everybody's dying to have a cup of tea and a pee, you know. And I'm going, the pyramids, Arbor Low, you know, Newgrange. And then it popped into my head, and I said, actually, the most sacred site I have ever been to is this one. And I would suggest it's the most sacred site you've been to, for a while anyway. Isn't she beautiful? Isn't she beautiful? And she's our mother. We need to take care of her. And I think the study of sacred sites reveals to us that there actually once was a time when we only took what we needed. And I think we need to get back to that philosophy again. For me, this is the true bottom line of this event, to bring across knowledge that we can use. You know, writing a book just for knowledge's sake, to me, there's no point. It's got to lead somewhere. It's got to lead to us being wise enough to look after this planet. And one of the lines in my book says, our mother has been very patient with her naughty children. Hasn't she just? Up to now, at least. So the very last lines in the book are, I believe West Kennet Long Barrow is still here today because it may yet turn out to be as vital to us as it was to Neolithic people over 5,000 years ago. So go out and use these sacred sites, interact with them, connect with them. They are waiting for you to go out there. And don't forget, these sites weren't built by your ancestors, they were built by your relatives. Unless you're any aliens in the room? This is Glastonbury. Come on, hands up. Okay, so unless you're an alien, West Kennet Long Barrow and Stonehenge and Avebury was built by your relatives. How funky is that? So it is like going back and tracing your roots. And West Kennet is the only, I've been to sacred sites all over the world, and West Kennet Long Barrow is the only place I've ever been to where I know I've been there before. And a lot of other people who go there, especially women actually, feel they know they've been there before. And all funky things can happen. We was there one night doing a meditation, and this French guy was going around Europe with a crystal skull. And he hadn't planned to come to West Kennet at all. He said, I just felt I had to come here tonight, and we're doing our ceremony up there. So he placed it in the center of the chamber, and we sent out love, unconditional, to the world. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm into this site, to help heal this beautiful, beautiful planet that we're privileged to live on. Thank you very much.